This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. For a 5-year period, the movies were missing something icky and strange and thought-provoking. I'm of course talking about Yorgos Lanthimos movies. We went 5 years without them, and now all of a sudden we're getting 2 big boys from the man himself in less than 12 months. What I will say about Poor Things, his first of these 2 films, is that it felt like we had reached a peak with the quote-unquote Yorgos style. Not only was his surrealism the most extreme and expensive it's ever been, but narratively, it felt like the perfect story for him to be telling, exploring societal norms, sexual liberation, and feminism, themes it felt like he had been exploring his whole career. Not only do I consider it one of his most impressive movies, but being the first he had released in years made it such a breath of fresh air at the time. And when the first teaser for this new film, Kinds of Kindness, was released, I couldn't help feeling a lack of enthusiasm for it. Did we really need another Yorgos movie this soon? But I'm pleased to say that I was wrong. Boo, Karsten, you absolute moron. Kinds of Kindness is a certified banger. Kinds of Kindness is a film comprised of 3 short stories. A man tries to break a vicious cycle, a policeman suspects something is wrong with his wife, and a woman is trying to find someone who has a special ability. I'm usually pretty vague when I describe synopses, but I'm being especially vague here because watching these stories unfold is such a crazy experience, similar to most Yorgos movies, and I would never forgive myself if I spoiled it for anyone. The film, like Poor Things, also stars Emma Stone, Willem Dafoe, and Margaret Qualley, but it also stars Hong Chow, Mamadou Ache, and most importantly, Jesse Plemons. Oh, and it's just shy of being 3 hours long, by the way. As I've mentioned before, I don't mind the runtime on this thing. I like Yorgos, so the more the merrier, but it does feel like a marathon, I have to admit. You're kind of drowning in his dry humor with little to no payoff. I can see it being a little suffocating if you're not on board with his style. But at the same time, I encourage you to go into this with an open mind because it is, in a lot of ways, pretty different. For one, I've thought a lot about the time the film takes place in, the modern day, an aspect that Yorgos has shied away from for a good while now. And it's such an intentional decision here. He leans into the look of our current world, the towering concrete structures that surround us, having group sex and filming the group sex, driving ridiculous looking cars at ridiculous speeds, cults, the whole shebang. He captures this current society in all the ways he needs to make it feel isolating, like a prison. Again, large, claustrophobic parking garages, sex with no intimacy. You get the point. Something I just adore about this in Poor Things is how deliberate Yorgos is about shooting his locations. He's very expressive about it, and it's a quality I don't see in many filmmakers working today. And I think his choice of shooting this in such an isolating way really helps the story it's trying to tell. Speaking a little about the performances, these are actually a return to form for Lanthimos in a way, returning to his somewhat robotic and bleak style of delivery, but I wouldn't say they're as lifeless as what I'm used to from him. They're just desperate. I think it really works for this story specifically, more so than in some of his older films even, because so many of these characters are basically under the control of another person. They don't feel like themselves, and so what you get are just these sacks of organs walking around doing tasks. That is not the first time I've described characters in Yorgos movies as sacks of organs. I love saying that. I'm gonna keep saying it. I think it describes his movies pretty well. But back to the performances, Jesse Plemons is the obvious standout. He's really the only one worth talking about right now. Plemons always feels so underused in films. He drops in for a scene or 2 and ends up stealing the show pretty much every single time. Even in Power of the Dog, I wish there was more of him. But the Plemon heads got spoiled with this one. He is dominating the screen in all 3 stories, never repeating himself, never overdoing it. It's such a gift that we've been given. In this film, he always feels like he's uncomfortable in his own skin, like he doesn't fit in any of the places he finds himself in. He read the vibe perfectly, and I just simply couldn't get enough of him. He was so fun to watch. I loved Poor Things, like I've said a lot, but a small part in why this felt a little less exciting when it was first announced was that Yorgos movies themselves felt like they were getting dangerously close to being unexciting. And as an outsider, aside from it taking place in modern day, this just seemed like more of the same from him. Obviously, the more successful a filmmaker becomes, the more resources they're granted, and the more they can indulge, that's great. But a big appeal of Yorgos, especially with films like Sacred Deer, Dogtooth, and in some ways The Lobster, was how cynical and sometimes depraved his films felt, yet how compelling and hilarious he managed to make his cynicism. The more popular he gets, the more the Oscars eat his stuff up. I feared we'd never see that sicko Yorgos again. But Kinds of Kindness is a a full-blown return to that style of his. There is nothing crowd-pleasing or Oscar-baity about this. If this does somehow secure at least one Oscar nomination, it will really prove that he can do just whatever he wants at this point and they'll let him in. Because the thing about Kinds of Kindness is, unlike Poor Things, unlike The Favorite, maybe even unlike Sacred Deer, it doesn't tie itself up in a neat little bow. I can see the word anticlimactic being tossed around a lot when talking about this movie, but to me that's a large part of what the film is trying to say, and I don't think it makes it a bad movie at all. I mean, for one, it's an anthology film. Usually the point of an anthology is to prioritize a theme and explore it through different stories, and I have so much fun watching a filmmaker morph my understanding of that theme through each story, with the full creative liberation the style of filmmaking offers at the same time. Say what you want about The French Dispatch, but that's Wes Anderson being his most Wes Anderson, and I think he's allowed to do that because it's an anthology film. And Kinds of Kindness is a really great example of this style, as it never feels repetitive or like it recycles anything. Each section is so distinct, you don't know where you're going next. There are very few through lines going on here, but there are some. One is this RMF character we never really understand. I found that element perfectly mysterious. Do not expect me to explain what it means here. I don't know what it means either. I don't even know if I want to know what it means. Two is the cast, all of whom return to play different characters in each story. I really liked that part. And three is the theme that's spelled out for you in the title, Kinds of Kindness, toxic forms of showing affection for your loved one or someone else. In my initial Cannes review for the film, I on the spot pronounced it the most romantic Yorgos movie, which I sort of stand by but need to add an asterisk to. See, on one hand, I do think the film brilliantly depicts the desperate need to impress someone you're in love with or to prove that love for them. As hollow and as cynical as each story feels, I still get a sense that there's a deep sense of yearning in all of them from the leads. It's their emptiness that causes them to chase these relationships so desperately. Again, the film takes place in such an isolating society. It makes sense why these characters would do absolutely anything and get violent just to have some sort of connection. The second story with Jesse Plemons, who plays a police officer, ends up being pretty intense, and I found its peak to be weirdly touching. So yeah, I think there's something romantic about this movie, but that just feels like the wrong way to interpret it, as that is not how it feels while you're watching it. The acts themselves are happening in these toxic and abusive relationships. They are manipulations disguised as acts of love. And that's the genius of the film. Its emptiness is all the more affecting because it's portraying empty relationships driven by desperation and power, not love. And how this toxic cycle doesn't really lead to any fulfillment at the end of the day. To me, it's what makes its left field ending that I won't spoil work. It both has a darkly funny what's the point thing about it, but it also snaps you out of the daze the film puts you in for nearly 3 hours to remind you how easy it is to spiral in these abusive situations. Again, I think it's pretty brilliant. So yeah, if you can't tell, Kinds of Kindness is a wild ride. It's one of those rare movies where an established auteur is given complete creative freedom to run wild, and it actually doesn't feel all that messy. In fact, it's further proof that Lanthimos, hate him or love him, is one of the most exciting voices in film today. I'm so glad that I was proven wrong. At this point, I can't say I know what to expect from him. All I know is whatever it is, it's probably gonna ruin my day. Thanks for watching. Go watch Kinds of Kindness and form your own opinion. And before you head out. I am way too orange right now, but I want to thank this week's sponsor, Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. With Squarespace, you can design your own personalized website with a new guided design system called Squarespace Blueprint, which allows you to choose from professionally curated layout and styling options to build a unique online presence from the ground up, tailored to your brand or business and optimized for every device. So you can go ahead and launch that website super easily and get discovered fast with their integrated, optimized SEO tools, which allow you to show up more often to more people and grow the way you want. With their video collection feature, you're able to upload video content, organize your video library, and showcase your content on beautiful video pages. Really helps if you want to, build a portfolio. And possibly the best part about Squarespace is their visual design tools, which allow you to grow credibility and engage visitors with an unrivaled suite of visual design effects built in and ready to go on any Squarespace website. With their dozens of modern and intuitive options, you're able to build your own unique online aesthetic. Go to squarespace.com to start your free trial, and when you're ready to launch that website, go to squarespace.com/Karsten to get 10% off of your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.